Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my Premier League Matchweek 18 predictions, also known as the halfway stage of the Premier League season. I feel like I keep on saying it in every single video, but this Premier League season has gone by so fast. It is so fast you might as well call it a Dharma Traore, except for the fact that the season's actually been good.
Excuse me?
That was probably a tiny bit unnecessary, Finn. But of course, without any more unnecessary attacks on random football players, let's jump straight into the predictions. So jumping into game number 1 of Premier League Matchweek 18, we have West Ham United versus Brentford. Now each of these two teams only 4 wins this entire season apiece. Realistically, it's not ideal for either of these two teams, especially West Ham United, because looking at Brentford, although only 4 wins this season, at least they are getting necessary results. They are getting points, they are getting draws. In fact, more draws than any other team in the Premier League. And versus a team like West Ham United, it could prove vital. I mean, points versus both Tottenham Hotspurs and Manchester City. I do think the points will go in Brentford's favour. I am going to make it a 2-1 win here, and I do think that the Bees will sting. Obviously more draws than anyone else. I mean, so many draws, you might as well call them Picasso. Did Picasso even draw? I think he painted. They've gotten so many draws, you might as well call them Da Vinci.
Nice.
Now jumping into our next game, it's going to be an absolutely gigantic one with Liverpool versus Leicester City. Obviously both teams starting with an L, but this game will decide who takes the L, because neither of these two teams once again have had ideal seasons. Liverpool, very slow start to this Premier League season, but they've picked up on some massive momentum, and versus a Leicester City team that have just lost 3-0 to Newcastle United, I do think that the former and present Brendan Rodgers team will have a clash to remember, but unfortunately only to remember in a good way by Liverpool. I do think Liverpool will take this one. I do think it'll be their second 3-1 victory in a row. Once again, this Liverpool team just looks a lot more complete than Leicester City, and I wouldn't be surprised if Brendan Rodgers got the sack very, very soon.
You're fired.
We don't know when James Maddison will be match fit, and without a main player like him, who's really been the star of this Leicester City team, I mean, the points just have to go to the Reds. Next up, we have Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Manchester United. Now, of course, looking at Wolves, a very, very solid win versus Everton in their previous game, although they did have to snatch it in the 95th minute, versus a Manchester United team that are looking absolutely phenomenal at the moment. Obviously, in their previous game, although it was only Nottingham Forest.
What do you mean by that?
They performed superbly, and versus another team in the relegation zone, I do back Manchester United to get the win here. I do think Man United could win this one 2-0. Once again, very optimistic thing to say Man United will get the clean sheets, but it is something they've been doing relatively well this season. I mean, they've got more clean sheets than a nun's hostel on Valentine's Day.
I don't know. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
That's not an image I want in my head. Bournemouth versus Crystal Palace is next. Now, I, for one, think both of these two teams are very, very similar in the fact that they've both had very decent seasons up until this point, but they have both disappointed on many occasions. As we know, co-owner of Bournemouth now, brand new, Michael B. Jordan. I mean, let's hope this won't be as big a mistake as Fantastic Four. Let's hope this one doesn't go down in flames. But once again, jokes aside, looking at this Bournemouth team, I don't feel like we can underestimate them, although a strong part of me does believe that Crystal Palace will take the points here. We have seen on many occasions that they probably are a better attacking team or a better defensive team, and once again, although they didn't have a good game last time round versus Fulham, I do think versus Bournemouth, they should take the 3 points. Now obviously, speak of the devil, and he shall appear, as it is going to be Fulham next as they take on Southampton. Now looking at Southampton, I feel like them compared to Fulham is kind of what they aspire to be as a club. Promoted from the Championship and just hitting it from the get-go. Unfortunately, the Southampton team is on the drop at the moment. They are a serious threat of being relegated, 20th place in the Premier League. And versus a Fulham team that are in the top 10, I do think Fulham have the ability to take absolutely everything from Southampton. Dare I say a dominant 2-0 win, although it could be even 3 or 4-0. Next up, we have the Battle of the Blues. And no, it's not a music competition, as it is Manchester City versus Everton. Now looking at Everton, absolutely awful season, only 3 wins all season. They've just lost to easily one of the worst Wolverhampton Wanderers teams we have ever seen. And versus this strong, dominant Manchester City team, I hate to say it, but it could get ugly. I am going to make it a very dominant 4-0 win. I will warn you guys though, I'm recording this before the Manchester City versus Leeds game, so I've got no idea what that score will be. I mean, the fact that Erling Haaland scored this many goals versus Leeds, wow, isn't that impressive?
Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
And this'll all be mine?
Everything.
I think we'll just show how strong he'll be versus Everton, and as I said, it could only really go one way in my opinion. Next up, we have the almighty Newcastle United versus Leeds. Now, looking at Newcastle United, I just have to give them the win. I mean, only one loss this entire season, absolutely mind-boggling to think about. Defensively solid, attacking-wise, they are so solid, they are as magical as Miguel Almiron. Once again, such a superstar-studded team. And I do think versus a Leeds United team that just can't seem to defend at the moment, I do think Newcastle United will take it. I do think Leeds United will score though. There have only been 4 games this entire season where they haven't scored a goal. But as I said, saying that versus a very strong defensive Newcastle team, I do think that the Magpies will take it. Next up, we have one of the greatest fixtures of all time with Brighton versus Arsenal.
Say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Of course, it is one of the greatest of all time, as it is the fixture that brought us Emi Martinez. I mean, without a fixture like this, we would have never gotten to see one of the greatest celebrations of all time. But obviously, once again, jokes aside, looking at Brighton versus Arsenal in the last 10 games between these two, it's actually been surprisingly close. In fact, Brighton have won more of the last 10 games than Arsenal. So of course, look at this, you can never underestimate Brighton. But I do think looking at Arsenal with the current season that they've had, which by the way, yes, I know I'm off camera, I am working on it.
You are a liar!
But I do think Arsenal will take this one. Only one loss all season. They've been absolutely magnificent defensively and attacking wise. I can see McAllister score for Brighton, showing how much of a Messi he can be. But I can also just see Arsenal buying him next week anyway. I mean, it's just one of those things. But as I said, I do think Arsenal are the stronger team and they will take it. Now jumping into our second final game of Premier League Matchweek 18, which of course, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed down below, please make sure to subscribe, because if you enjoyed this video, hey, it probably makes more sense to watch my future content as well. But jumping into our second final game, it is Tottenham Hotspurs versus Aston Villa. Now of course, Tottenham Hotspurs in their previous game versus Brentford, it really showcased that they are in dire need of a new centre-back.
What's that supposed to be, some kind of sick joke?
But other than that, I do think Spurs are still a better team than Aston Villa, although Villa being very, very good under Unai Emery. But once again, I do think Spurs have the making to be a very solid team on their day. Once again, they've had very disappointing moments throughout the season at various points, but I still back them to get the points, and I do think they'll take it 2-1. And that, ladies and gentlemen, takes us to our final game of Premier League Matchweek 18 with Nottingham Forest versus Chelsea. Once again, I just feel so incredibly sorry for Nottingham Forest, buying 22 players this entire season and to still be in the relegation zone. I mean, if anything, it just means that they have to buy more buses to take their players back to the Championship.
Oh, that's not very nice.
But unfortunately, once again, jokes aside, looking at this Forest team, although I do want them to do well versus Chelsea, I really do doubt it. I think they are struggling to score goals at the moment. And I do think Chelsea will replicate their score from their game versus Bournemouth with a 2-0 win. Unfortunately, they just are the better team. And once again, as I've said in all of my games, they should take it. But that, ladies and gentlemen, will be it for my Premier League Matchweek 18 predictions. Once again, if you've enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe, show some support towards the channel. Always do appreciate it. And once again, don't forget to put your predictions down below. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been your boy Finn, FYNN, and until next time, cheers.